It's the preview. It is Fulham against Aston Villa. This is a video for not only Patreon members, but for YouTube as well. So any Villa fans watching, get down in the comments. But I'm really looking forward to this game. Fulham versus Aston Villa. It should be a really good game of football. Let's just get into the preview. Aston Villa are coming off the back of 2 draws in the Premier League, but also a massive, massive win in the Champions League against Bayern Munich. That's 2 wins from 2 after their win as well against Young Boys. And, you know, I spoke a bit earlier this week about Aston Villa and how insanely impressive I've been with them. But there has been games where they've had to sort of grind out results and have to sort of come from behind. And there's, 2-0 down to Everton and winning 3-2 for a wonder goal from John Duran. I think they, on the balance of play, they probably deserved to win that game. They created so many chances once Everton went 2-0 up. And against Wolves, they struggled and actually, scored 3 fairly late goals through Watkins, Konza, and again, John Duran off the bench after Wolves had frustrated the home supporters. They're through to the next round of the EFL Cup after beating Wycombe Wanderers away from home. And then the 2-2 draw with Ipswich was fairly interesting, going a goal behind, then coming back to lead. Again, a trend that we've seen so far this season with Aston Villa. This time they let the lead slip a little bit, with Delap scoring a really fun goal, one of my favourite goals of the season so far, where he basically took on Diego Carlos and waltzed through and scored really well, low under the keeper. The 0-0 draw with Manchester United was, I think, a hangover of sorts against, there wasn't as much energy in that game as the game against Bayern Munich. The Bayern Munich game took a lot out of them, in my opinion. Man United just aren't a very good team and couldn't really make much happen against Villa themselves. I think maybe Rashford forced Martinez into a good save, but I don't think I wasn't overly impressed with Man United, as I haven't been with them all season. But Villa is certainly a team that, under Unai Emery, have just gone from strength to strength. Of course, it was the game against Fulham 2 seasons ago where Fulham had won by 3-0 that ultimately ended Steven Gerrard's reign as manager. I was in the press conference after the game, and it was barely 2 minutes that Gerrard was sat in there taking questions. He wanted to get out there as soon as possible, and by the time I'd left the ground after work, it was over. He was sacked, and I think credit has to go to Marco Silva for that performance. But Villa were absolutely dire. I think Douglas Luiz was very unlucky to get a red card. Mitrovic, now I can say that Mitrovic obviously has left, overplayed that completely. At the time, I was hollering and heckling like every other Fulham fan, saying red card. But yeah. As per Fulham, I mean, 2 defeats so far this season, 3 in all competitions. The Preston one's on penalties, so we drew the game, really. 2 defeats to both Manchester sides, both by goal margins. Both come away with credit in both performances. Probably City more than Man United. Man United obviously was the only game we haven't scored in yet so far this season. To score 2 goals at Man City, and arguably should have scored more, maybe 5. I mean, Adama Traore, Raul Jimenez, the shot was blocked. I mean, it could have been more. It should have been more. Fulham should have taken more from the game. And yeah, it's just been a really good start to the season. Newcastle at home, very, very good win. Frustratingly dropped points to West Ham. If you've watched every one of these previews, you'd be thinking, God, all he talks about is that West Ham game. But it's just a factor of this season because there's been so few games of the season. You're always looking back on the previous ones, and you do end up repeating yourself. But a 1-0 win away at Nottingham Forest, our only clean sheet of the season, our only away win of the season so far. Not a great game, but a very professional performance, and we saw it out through a penalty against the team at the time was unbeaten. And you look at Aston Villa's record; they've only lost 1 game all season to Arsenal, a team that they beat twice last season, and Arsenal just showed a little bit more about them at Villa Park this time around and got a 2-0 win. And fair enough. And Leicester responded in turn after beating West Ham. They responded in turn by going to Leicester and winning, and then beating Everton and Wolves, albeit from behind. I have to say, Aston Villa are one of the most entertaining teams to watch right now. I think Fulham are also one of the most entertaining teams to watch right now in the Premier League. And I think this is going to be an unbelievably good game. What's worth mentioning is injuries. Now, injuries do override this game a lot. There's a lot of injuries that is worth mentioning. Let's start with Fulham, where it was all looking fairly okay 2 weeks ago. We had a clean bill of health apart from Carlos Vinicius and Jorge Cuenca, who had picked up knocks. Jorge Cuenca on the ankle. Vinicius has been injured. He picked up a knock during the start of the season that hasn't featured, of course, for Fulham yet. So far this season, he was on his way out the club. And after Jay Stansfield left, he had to be hauled back in and given a squad number as well. But on the international break before even players left, it was Joachim Andersen who had to withdraw from the Danish squad after receiving a knock. We actually don't know the extent of that injury whatsoever. We'll have to hear from Marco on Friday when he speaks to the media at 1:30. As for Sasha Lukic, getting a shoulder injury and he's probably going to be sidelined for a few weeks is a huge blow to not only him, but the way that Fulham have played so far this season. He has been absolutely excellent in the midfield. And now it looks like Sander Berge will have to come into the team, who actually played, of course, against Man City, did fine. He did okay, and he's been impressive for Norway in the international breaks. That's fairly encouraging as well. And then we go on to Aston Villa, where, well, the extent of the injuries and the list of the injuries is pretty... Well, it's alarming. Onana will be out. Amadou Onana will be out. Well, it looks like he'll be out. This is according to FotMob, and I don't know. We'll hear from Unai Emery in the next couple of days, and maybe we'll get an update on these players. But Boubacar Kamara, Ezri Konsa came off injured against Manchester United. Jacob Ramsey apparently has a strain injury. McGinn as well, hamstring, and then Olsen, and of course Tyrone Mings has been out for a while as well. So there's lots of players there where there's lots of players that Villa have out and could be missing from the squad. But you also look at Villa's team and you go, actually, they've still got some very, very good players. You look on the face of it, I'd imagine from the outside looking in that Villa will line up in a way which is probably like Martinez, Digne and Cash as right backs, left backs. Centre backs will be Pau Torres and Diego Carlos right now, if Konsa is going to be out. Midfield, two of Tielemans and Barkley. And then you've basically got Bailey, Morgan Rogers, who, by the way, is a sensational player. Jaden Philogene, who is equally as fantastic. And then Ollie Watkins up front with like John Duran on the bench. I mean, it is an insanely good 11, that, and one that will be competitive and one that will give us a fierce game. As for Fulham, I think we'll line up as like this. I think it will be in goal, Leno, at the back, Tete, hopefully Anderson and Bassi. If not, it'll have to be Issa Diop, which could change the dynamic of the game completely. Robinson at left back. In midfield, it'll be Sander Berge, and I think we'll go with Emile Smith-Rowe with Pereira as the 10. Adama Traore on the right, Iwobi on the left, and Raul Jimenez up front. Muniz scoring his first goal of the season will give him a chance of maybe getting in the starting 11, but after what happened last night, if anyone hasn't seen, Raul Jimenez scored one of the most sensational free kicks you'll ever see for Mexico against USA, and also Andres Pereira scored an incredible overhead effort for Brazil last night as well. So it's been a fairly mixed international break for Fulham players. Those who've gone on international duty. Jimenez scoring, Pereira scoring, Berger impressing, Lukic injured, Josh King scoring for the under-19s. So yeah, interesting one for those. And obviously Robertson, of course, playing for the USA as well, losing to Mexico last night, which would not have been a great result for Mauricio Pochettino in I think it's his first game in charge as well. So interesting stuff. How do I think this game's going to go? Well, it's going to be a great game, I reckon. Lots of, I looked at the game against West Ham and I picked it up to be a really good game. And it actually wasn't. It wasn't a great game. But Fulham should have won the game. But I think there's a lot of attacking quality on show here. Even from midfield, Tielemans loves to pick up the ball and have a shot on goal. Barkley as well, workhorse in midfield, likes to get up and down. Saw that for Luton last season. Has a goal in him as well. Bailey, Philogene on each side, tricky wingers, fast wingers, players who can get shots away and low crosses into the box. You know what Watkins is like. He peels away, front post runs, back post runs, or back pedaling to the back post, wing headers. We saw that against Everton to make it 2-1 as well. He scored a header. And then Rodgers in the middle, who basically is one of the most impressive young players in the Premier League so far this season, in my personal opinion. And then obviously Cash, very, very capable right back. Digne, fantastic. Carlos got a bit of a run around against Liam Delap, but Pau Torres has been really, really steady so far. And Martinez, who is lauded as the best goalkeeper in the world by Aston Villa fans, it's very hard to argue with that sometimes. He is a fantastic goalkeeper. As for Fulham, there'll be attacking quality. There'll be pace on either flanks through Iwobi and most notably Adama Traore. Reece Nelson could start, I suppose, but his impact from the bench has been really, really good. And I would feel more confident bringing Reece Nelson off the bench at 65 minutes than I would Alex Iwobi. I feel like Nelson would have more of an impact on the game in that case, and that thus is why he's been used as a impact sub so far this season. He's been fantastic. Obviously scored the goal against Newcastle, set up the goal for Rodrigo Muniz, and scored against Preston as well in the EFL Cup. And then obviously Muniz is an option off the bench as well. So Watkins and Duran and Jimenez and Muniz, Villa fans will say, well, we've got a better two strikers. And yeah, maybe the case based on form, based on this season, based on, Watkins, what he did in the summer. Duran is scoring incredible goals off the bench as well for Aston Villa. But in Muniz, we've got a good option off the bench as well. And now he's got his first goal against Man City. I do think the confidence will be up. Jimenez's confidence will be well up. I mean, that's an incredible start to the season for Raul Jimenez, a player I really wasn't too enthralled about this season, and did feel as though when we lost Stansfield, I thought, well, now we've just got Muniz and Jimenez and, Carlos Vinicius. That doesn't scream too many goals, but football's a funny game. And like last season, I haven't learned from my lesson and not thinking Muniz would amount to anything. And then suddenly he goes on a purple patch. A goal, one of the goals he scored last season was against Aston Villa. And of course, the goal that actually set alight Fulham's goal scoring form up front last season was that consolation at Aston Villa last season, the 3-1 defeat. We were dreadful that day, but the best thing that ever happened to us was Jimenez scoring that goal. And then he went on a really good run against Nottingham Forest and West Ham in those two back-to-back final wins. And from there, Fulham really blossomed under Marco Silva that season after not a struggling start as such, but a very low goal-scoring start to the season. So Fulham Aston Villa has played a huge part in narrative over the last few seasons, both for Aston Villa and for Fulham, which I find great. And I think it's going to be a great game. I think, of course, Fulham v Aston Villa was the biggest game of 2018 when the playoff final. That feels like such a long time ago now, under completely different eras. Grealish playing for Villa. They had who did they have playing? I forgot his name. They brought him off the bench, but they had. I've just drawn a complete blank there. Apologies. Scott Hogan. That was it. He brought off the bench. Was it Jonathan Codger who was playing up front that day? I mean, just like players who just are not involved with either club anymore. Obviously, Fulham still have the likes of Tom Cairney, who scored the winner that day. He'll be on the bench on Saturday. Savici Kanovic versus Steve Bruce. A year later, Fulham were down and Villa were up. And then, obviously, Fulham got back up, beat Villa. They then sacked Gerrard. They got Unai Emery in. And again, the rest is history. Both teams have really blossomed and thrived since that 2018, albeit it took a bit of up and down from Fulham to stabilise. But under Marco Silva, we've been revolutionary. He has revolutionised the club. In terms of a score prediction, how do I think this game's going to go? I was just speaking to it with another Fulham fan earlier, and we think there's going to be goals. I'm going to go with Fulham 2, Aston Villa 2. Bit of a topsy-turvy ding-dong of a game. Maybe Fulham take the lead and we go behind. We've seen it before with Villa this season. They like to come from behind. It could be similar to the structure of the game against Ipswich, where they go behind and take the lead and we equalise, and that's all she wrote, really. But it also, Villa could go 2-0 up and we could come back and draw 2-2. We almost did that last season through Adama Traore, when he should have made it 2-2. I just think this will be a really good game. It would be great to keep the unbeaten run at home going, but Villa haven't lost away from home this season, albeit have conceded one more goal than us in the Premier League than Fulham. I think there'll be goals. I think Jimenez on form, and Pereira is now scoring as well for both club and country. Smith Rowe, I look forward to watching this Fulham team every week because I think there's so much attacking quality on show, and we're playing a style of play which is so attractive on the eye. And I just think Aston Villa are an insanely well drilled, good football club as well, with a really, really good squad, and the fans will bring a lot of noise and a lot of atmosphere. So I think as a spectacle, if you're an international fan who can't make it to a game or is watching from abroad and you're thinking, oh, I don't know which 3 p.m. to watch Fulham v Aston Villa. That would be the best game, in my opinion. I might just have to double check that, because there obviously will be some good fixtures. Man United, Brentford, nah. Newcastle, Brighton might be okay. Southampton, Leicester, Ipswich, Everton. I think Fulham Villa is the standout of the 3 o'clocks. Tottenham versus West Ham at 12:30, and then Bournemouth Arsenal at 5:30. That is the review. No, it's not. That's the preview. We'll do the review on Sunday on YouTube as well. Thanks so much for watching. I think the game's going to be Fulham 2, Aston Villa 2. Please let me know in the comments down below your score predictions. Keep it tidy, keep it nice down there. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for being able to speak on Sunday. And yeah, I think from both fans' point of view, I think this will be a really, really good game. And I just hope it lives up to the spectacle. Obviously, I hope Fulham win, but I think a 2-2 draw against Villa, depending on how the game goes, would be a very, very good result. Thanks so much for watching.